There are athletes who live by discipline, strict diets, and perfect routines. And then there was CC Sabathia, a giant of a man, more than 300 pounds, who spent almost every night partying, drinking until he blacked out, yet somehow dominated the greatest hitters in the world. He won a Cy Young Award, became a 6-time All-Star, and helped the New York Yankees lift another championship banner. His story is one of raw talent, self-destruction, and ultimately redemption, the journey of a man who refused to let his demons define him. He was born in 1980 in Vallejo, California, a city known as much for its violence as for its resilience. His father, a passionate sports fan, was determined to keep his son away from the streets. From the age of 4, little CC was swinging a bat, learning the rhythm of the game that would one day make him famous. On the field, he was always the biggest and the strongest, a natural athlete who threw harder than anyone else his age. But strength on the outside often hides pain within. When he was 12, his parents separated, leaving a wound that would shape his teenage years. 2 years later, his grandfather, the man he adored, died of lung cancer. For the young boy, the world suddenly felt unstable. Seeking escape, he turned to alcohol at just 14. Drinking made him forget, at least for a while. It dulled the hurt. It made him feel in control. But it was the beginning of a habit that would follow him into fame. Despite the chaos in his home life, CC Sabathia never stopped believing in baseball. Through high school, he poured his emotions into every pitch, intimidating batters with his towering frame and explosive arm. Scouts took notice. At 18, his dream arrived. He was drafted 20th overall by the Cleveland Indians, signing a $1.3 million deal that changed his life overnight. Yet that new life came with loneliness. For the first time, he was far from family and old friends, and that familiar emptiness returned. He drank to fill it. Sabathia would later write that his drinking always had to be extreme. He didn't drink to relax. He drank to vanish, to go from 0 to 100. Blacking out wasn't an accident. It was the goal. Still, when he stepped on the mound, his talent overpowered everything else. With professional coaching, his fastball jumped from 93 to 99 miles per hour, and by 2001 he was ready for the big leagues. His first game was in Baltimore. The night before, he barely slept, nerves rattling his 6'6" frame. On the mound, his debut was rough, 3 runs in the first inning. But he recovered quickly, and by the end of the season, he had won 17 games. At just 20 years old, the youngest player in Major League Baseball, CC Sabathia, had arrived. Success, however, only fueled his lifestyle. He signed his first major contract, $9.5 million for 4 years, and began to live large. In 2002, after a night of heavy drinking, he found himself staring down the barrel of a gun. Robbed at 4 in the morning, he realized how close he'd come to dying. For a short while, he slowed down, living with his father and girlfriend. But the pattern always returned. In 2003, things looked bright again. He earned his first All-Star selection and celebrated the birth of his first child. But tragedy struck when his father lost his battle with cancer. "The toughest thing I've ever gone through," he would later say. Within months, CC also lost an uncle and a cousin. To cope, he did what he always had. He drank, then he pitched, then he drank some more. Yet on the field, he remained a force. By 2007, Sabathia had reached his peak. He blended raw power with control, mastering the art of pitching with both ferocity and precision. That year, he won 19 games with a 3.21 ERA, earning the Cy Young Award, the highest honor a pitcher can receive. Cleveland surged into the postseason, and for a moment it felt like destiny. But destiny had other plans. Facing the Boston Red Sox in the ALCS, Sabathia stumbled. He gave up 7 runs in the opening game, and though his team clawed back to a 3-1 series lead, Boston stormed through to win in 7. CC blamed himself, the weight of failure heavier than ever. In 2008, Cleveland's season collapsed, and so did his relationship with the only organization he had known. When the team traded him to Milwaukee, he felt betrayed. But that betrayal became fuel. In just 17 starts with the Brewers, he posted an ERA of 1.65, an almost mythical number. He carried Milwaukee to the postseason and became an instant legend. When free agency arrived, the biggest teams lined up to sign him. The New York Yankees offered him $161 million, the richest pitching contract in baseball history. Sabathia hesitated. He had heard horror stories about New York's fans and the relentless media. But in the end, he signed. He would soon find himself under the brightest lights in sports. In 2009, CC Sabathia became the Yankees' ace, and yet, off the field, his demons were louder than ever. He drank constantly, often until he passed out, then sobered up just in time for his next start. It was madness, but somehow it worked. That season, he won 19 games with a 3.37 ERA and led the Yankees to 103 wins. In the postseason, he was electric, dominating the Twins and the Angels before facing the Phillies in the World Series. When New York won in 6 games, CC Sabathia was a champion. The celebration that followed was pure excess. At a party hosted by Jay-Z, he promised his wife he wouldn't drink. The next morning, he woke up hungover and naked by a pool. Still, he denied he had a problem. Why stop when you're on top of the world? For a few more years, he remained among the league's elite. 21 wins in 2010, multiple All-Star selections, endless praise. But his body began to break down. His right knee throbbed with every step, his fastball slowed, and his once dominant frame became a burden. He tried surgery, diet changes, anything to stay afloat. By 2013, injuries and alcohol were eroding everything he had built. He crashed his car while drunk. He lost his edge. By 2015, he was over 300 pounds again, his knee barely holding together, his velocity fading. Desperate, he reinvented himself with a new pitch, the cutter, relying on strategy rather than strength. But that same year, he hit rock bottom. In a hotel room in Baltimore before the Yankees' final series, he couldn't stop drinking. He told himself to quit, but kept pouring glass after glass of Hennessy. In that moment, he realized the truth. He wasn't in control anymore. He wasn't drinking for fun. He was drinking because he couldn't stop. That night, CC Sabathia made the bravest decision of his life. He checked himself into rehab. It meant missing the postseason, but for once, baseball could wait. He needed to save himself. When he came out months later, he was sober for the first time in decades. The Yankees stood behind him completely, clearing alcohol from his hotel rooms, helping him rebuild his routines. Slowly, he found peace and discipline. In 2016, he returned to the mound a different man, not the overpowering giant of his youth, but a smarter, calmer, wiser competitor. The results spoke for themselves. In 2017, he won more than 10 games for the first time in years and guided New York on a deep playoff run. In 2018, his ERA dropped to its best in 6 seasons. But the battles weren't over. That winter, doctors discovered heart issues and CC underwent surgery. When he recovered, he announced that 2019 would be his final season. That year, baseball said goodbye to one of its fiercest warriors. On April 30th, he became only the 3rd left-handed pitcher ever to record 3,000 strikeouts. And in his final start that September, as he walked off the mound, fans rose to their feet. A standing ovation for a career defined not by perfection, but by perseverance. CC Sabathia's story is about more than baseball. It's about pain, addiction, loss, and the fight to reclaim a life once spinning out of control. He faced his demons head-on and emerged stronger than ever. Over 19 seasons, he collected 251 wins, 6 All-Star appearances, a Cy Young Award, a World Series ring, and the respect of an entire generation. Today, he has been sober for more than 9 years. In 2025, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to a man who stumbled, fell, and rose again. CC Sabathia wasn't perfect. He was human. But that humanity, with all its scars and triumphs, is what makes his story unforgettable. Because CC Sabathia didn't just throw fastballs, he threw himself into life, every ounce of it, and somehow came out the other side standing tall.